Welcome to part 2. So in the last video we've got ourselves relatively high level. We have an RG, we have a Parasaur, and we have a Pteranodon, and we are ready to build our base. There's a couple of things to note before we do that. Any point in this video or process where you come across a red drop or a yellow drop, get it. Like, always, especially red drops, unless you're gonna die for it. Don't, you know, if it's surrounded by wolves or something and you're not confident that you can take that red drop safely, then leave it. But anytime there's a free red drop that you can get without danger, you take it, because that can have so many good things. It can have any of the industrial equipment. It can have an industrial forge, the grinder, the chem bench, all of that. You need to get red drops. Yellow drops are also really nice. They can give lots of stone structures. They can give, I think they can give crossbows and sometimes guns. I might be wrong on the guns, but always get yellow drops, especially if they have a ring. You're going to see a lot of yellow drops with a ring if you build anywhere in the north. Purple drops, I think, are the ones that can first have the rifle. They can have a long neck rifle, so purple drops can also be nice. I don't get a ton of purple drops. If I'm next to one, you know, sometimes I'll get it, especially if it has the orange ring around it. Another thing to note, at any point during your beginning stages, any point during this video or anytime while you're getting your base set up, if you come across a Therizino, a baby Therizinosaurus, get it. Kill the parent, take the baby Theri, whether it's male or female. You only need one male, but you want, depending on your settings, if you're on my settings, probably around anywhere between 3 to 10 Therizinos. One male and then the rest female. These are going to be our kibble producers. You don't want to tame Therizinos because they're extremely slow tames unless you have kibble. If you just take the baby, you can just leave it at your base with some berries on it and it will grow up, and then that's all you have to do with it. You don't have to worry about bothering with it. Just give it a couple 100 berries and you're good to go. Also, if you get the opportunity to if you happen to find a nice high level Doedicarus baby or Ankylo baby, like 135 plus, they're probably worth getting too. If you just pass them or whatever, you can just kill the parent and get those too. Those will be a nice easy addition. You don't have to tame those things. You can just claim the baby. They can suffice even on official settings. They can harvest enough, and at least until you can find, you know, a 150 or something in the wild, and you can tame that and get it to 224 with the taming effectiveness or whatever. One other thing to note, if you're not careful, the temperature can fluctuate pretty extreme amounts in Ark Survival Ascended. You'll notice at one point I go to Carnivore Island and I notice that it's freezing cold, and I'm very, very aware of that. And in ASE, it wasn't such a big deal, but you can freeze to death in like less than 2 minutes if you're not careful in this game. So I noticed it, and then I immediately was watching my health like just plummet, so I immediately left and built like 4 campfires to stay alive. The heat is not quite so bad. You can still die, but one way you can combat the heat is to literally just jump in the water. Just find somewhere safe on the beach to park your bird or whatever, and then just hop in the water until it goes away. Okay, so go ahead and choose a base location. I would recommend somewhere safe. Best place is honestly just build where I build. So let's just assume that you've done that and you have, you know, you fly your 3 creatures to it. Okay, now you're going to want to at least build a couple foundations out of thatch. Just go ahead and just make like 5 thatch foundations. This is just where you can place your you can place like a storage box and a bed and a mortar and pestle and the very, very basic things. This is going to be your sort of base of operations for now. You can make it a full base very soon. There's one last thing to note here, and it's that you don't have to do every single thing that I'm doing in the exact same order. I'm trying to make a general guide for what needs to be done, not necessarily what order to do it in.
Nope.
I would recommend following the order pretty closely in the first video
Nope.
with the taming and the raft and
Nope.
going to Herb Island and stuff like that. But this is the point where the game will become more of your game, and you can do it in any way that you want. But I would recommend generally maybe look at these videos as a checklist of what needs to be done. So if my video cuts to a part where I've already done something and you haven't done that yet and I haven't explained it, it's just because sometimes an opportunity will come along to where I'm going to jump on that opportunity. Like in this video, we're going to tame a Doedicarus, we're going to tame an Ankylo, we're going to build our house, we're going to tame a creature with bleed, we're going to kill some alpha creatures, we're going to claim some baby fairies just because we happen to see them, we're going to collect drops, and at the end of this video we will have all of the very basics set up. You will have a base and all the basic creatures to where you can then build off of that and start doing caves and taming your actual main dinos. Also, just FYI, in the next video, we're going to get lots and lots of levels. That's what the next video is based on, just getting more levels. Okay, so I went ahead and tamed... On the last video, I tamed, I think it was like a 70 or something RG. It was pretty low. So I used that RG first to tame another RG. That was the first thing that I did. I don't like having a mid-level RG. I like having a high-level RG in the beginning. I basically won't do anything until I've tamed my high level, like a 135 plus RG. Like that is my first order of business. So in the last video, we tamed an RG. Now I'm going to use that RG to tame a better one. And then that is when I'll get started. So I ended up finding one on Carnivore Island. I think during this playthrough, I found a 135 and a 150. I'm pretty sure I tamed them both. Don't forget that you have headshot multipliers on Argentavis now. So always go for headshots if you're trying to kill it or knock it out. So you can save yourself some arrows or bullets. Another thing to mention, of course, is Dodo Dex. If you don't have it, get it. You can use it to check the stats of your creatures before they're tamed, and you can see all kinds of stuff. You can see what it takes to knock out, or how long it needs to be out, how much food, all of that. You can see all of that on there. So I've knocked out this RG, and I'm going to go and do other things while I wait for it to starve, and we'll come back and put food on it later. If you happen to come across an alpha raptor or an alpha carno, go ahead and put a rally point on it. I don't know the key for this. I might have changed it on mine. I think I did. Mine is the mouse wheel. I have to push the mouse wheel down and then I can rally point. I don't know what the key is by default. It might be that. I don't know what it is on controller either. I think it's I think you have to push both bumpers. While I was flying around, this big disgusting bug decided to attack me. If this happens to you and you're on an RG, you might die. They're pretty strong. This one was only level 20. But if you watch, you can evade it sort of by getting it to aggro on other things, especially Parasaurs, which is what I did. You can probably kill it if you're on a decent RG, but if you're on a mid-level RG like I was, I didn't know what level the Rhino was, so I took the chance. I wasn't going to take the chance of fighting it because I don't know anything about the Rhino, so I just got aggroed on this Parasaur, and he left me alone after that, and I left. So while I was waiting on the Argentavis to starve, I happened to find an Ankylo. You really can find them anywhere near the mountains generally, but for me, the only place I really ever find them is in the redwood biome, which I don't recommend you go to if you don't know much about the game. Stay out of there. Stay away from the redwoods at all costs. And the same with the swamp. Stay out of the swamp. If you really just want an Ankylo, go to Herbivore Island, where we were last time in the first episode, you can get an Ankylo there. I just found one. I wasn't really that particular about what level it is. If I find a higher one later, I'll get that. I don't like to sit there and take hours and hours to find something at high level, because on the island it's very difficult to find high levels in general. Once you find an Ankylo or Doedicurus, if you just want to tame one and you can't find a baby, just actually take the Ankylo back to your house, and then they're really slow, so you can just walk backwards, or if he gets too close, you can turn around and run backwards, and then just turn around and shoot him in the head. I don't know if these guys have an I don't know if these headshots have an Ankylo multiplier. I don't know if the Ankylos have a headshot multiplier yet or not, but I know the Doedicurus does, so make sure you shoot that one in the head. Okay, this is when my RG finally finished, my high level RG. So I'm going to swap the saddle over to him and take the lower level one to my base. For some reason, my RG was flying sideways. I was like drifting the RG. It was kind of weird. So I left the game and came back and had fixed that. A little side note here. I have an Ankylo unconscious, and it has berries on it to tame. And there's a glitch in the game right now where if you're on single player and you leave the game while a creature is taming and you come back, the taming bar will no longer go up. It will just stay at whatever it is until the end of time. At the time when I was doing this, I didn't know that, and my game just stayed at, I think it was like 26%. It just stayed there for like, I think 2 hours or something, and I didn't notice until later. I was just wondering, like, what is taking this Ankylo so long? So I know that this Ankylo would have tamed. I kept it unconscious the whole time for a very long time. Eventually, I figured out about this bug. I even let it wake up, and then I knocked it out again, and then I still didn't know I didn't realize what was happening at this point. Then I knocked it out again, and I put food on it again. And then I, for whatever reason, left the game, probably because my settings were being stupid and my game was crashing. But anyway, I ended up force taming this level 70 Ankylo, and that's not something I would normally do, but I know for a 100% fact that I would have tamed this. I didn't even have to do anything. I was already taming. I was keeping it unconscious. It just wasn't going up. This is the only kind of time that I will like use console commands, is if the game cheats me, I will cheat to make the game back to the way it was supposed to be. I didn't do anything wrong here. It just, the game was bugged, so I just force tamed it after like an hour and a half. It took a long time for me to realize like what the deal was. And I think this is the only thing that I did this with. But apparently you can take all the food off. I'm saying this in retrospect. I didn't know this at the time, but you can take all the food off, let it get to 0% tamed, and then put food on it again, and it will start taming again, just so you know. So now I have an Ankylo and a really good RG. Now I'm taking the time to, at the same time, get drops and look for a Doedicurus. They, like I said earlier, they have a headshot multiplier now, so you can save yourself some arrows, and I think they will ball up less now because you're doing less physical damage to them. By the way, if you're taming a Doedicurus and it balls up, just stop shooting at it. Just forget about it. You're not taming that Doed at that point. I don't know if I have footage of this, but there's something I wanted to explain about making your inventory a little easier to manage. If, in your Argentavis, I like to make a folder called Unload, and anytime I pick up a drop or have, extra hide or whatever else, something that I want to unload at my house, I put it in that folder. So instead of trying to worry about micromanaging the inventory of the RG, you can just, anything you want to unload, you can just dump it in that folder. When you get to your base, you can hold T or transfer all or whatever straight out of that folder to just put into boxes. All right, so now that you have your high level RG, the first thing you're probably going to want to do is take that RG and find an alpha raptor. If you happen to find one already, you could have dropped a rally point on it. I think I said that earlier. If you now have your RG, you can just go to the rally point, find yourself an explorer node, and then kill the alpha. What this is going to do is mainly give your RG a bunch of experience. It's not necessarily for you, but alpha dinos can give you a lot of really good stuff. They can give you good crossbows, which is the main thing, but they can also give you a nice metal hatchet or metal pickaxe. As we're going, go ahead and kill any alpha carnos and alpha raptors you see on your RG. They just, especially if you don't have an upgraded crossbow, it's really worth killing, especially alpha raptors, because they seem to give a lot of crossbows. I happen to get lucky and get a Mastercraft crossbow from the first alpha I killed, but I still have basic tools. The next thing that I happened to do, you can again do these things out of order, but I happened to find a nice high level Carno. You need to tame a creature with bleed. I recommend Carnos because Thylas are annoying because you have to have cooked food, and there's no way you're gonna have the best kibble. I forget if it's exceptional or extraordinary. I think it's extraordinary, but there's no way you're gonna have that kibble at this point in the game. But you need to have a bleed creature. The only ones I can think of right now are the Carno, the Thyla, and the Dinosuchus. If you can tame a Dinosuchus, if you're skilled enough to do that at a high level Dinosuchus, go ahead and do that. They're actually technically better, but this is all dependent on your skill level and if you can find one. I just don't like taming Dinosuchus with prime meat because it takes a lot of prime meat and it's kind of a hassle. I just didn't want to bother with it. But you need a bleed creature. We are going to use that bleed creature in the next video to get a lot of experience, and I'll show you how to do that in the next video. But I happened to find a Carno at high level, so I went ahead and tamed it. One more little note here: if you are a newer kind of player and aren't really comfortable doing somewhat difficult things and you want a sort of safety net, tame yourself a high level Carno, male and female, and then breed them together and then imprint on the baby. That will make the next video a little bit easier and give you a much safer route to take. You can do the same thing with the Thyla. I wouldn't recommend it. If you're newer to the game and you are not comfortable with harder things, stay out of the redwoods altogether. Don't get a Thyla. Do not get a Thyla. Don't go near them. You'll die. The Dinosuchus, it's relatively easy to tame them. You can watch maybe a Nublitz video or something like that. I might put out taming videos eventually on how I go about taming things. I almost never fail when I tame things, but I have a lot of hours, so sometimes when I explain things, they seem easy, but it's hard for me to come from the perspective of a newer player. I guess that also should imply that anytime that I do something that you don't know how to do, just look up how to do that thing. Again, this is like a checklist. I'm not explaining each individual little thing that you have to do and how to do it. I'm just telling you what needs to be done for you to beat the game. So I have myself a nice high level Carno knocked out, and I won't be taming another one. I mean, unless I find one, but I don't. I know in retrospect that I don't find another one. I'm just going to use the one I tamed, and we'll come back to that in the next video. So this is part where my game was crashing a lot during these last couple of recordings, and I actually lost some of the footage, and my house is now built. It's just a very, very basic house, and I built it out of thatch. I always build everything out of thatch in the beginning because anytime you go and find yellow drops, they will a lot of times have stone structures in them. So what I do is build out of thatch in the beginning because it's really cheap, and you can do it with tools. You don't even need dinos. You can just build yourself a thatch base, and then as you play, replace the thatch base with all of the structures that you find in the drops. Or of course, once you have your resource dinos, you can just replace it then if you want. This is just how I do it. I always just replace it as I go because I don't really care what it looks like. I just need the thatch blueprint essentially. But that's why you're gonna see that my house is now built, and I didn't really explain any of that. I guess a couple of things to note about building a house. If you don't know how to build, let's say, not necessarily if you don't know how to build, but if you don't know what needs to be built in your house, you need quite a bit of space. Like, it needs to be a pretty decent sized house. If you're straight up about efficiency, don't build a house. Just build big flat floor. That's all you need is a floor. Don't even worry about covering it up because you don't really need that. That's really just for aesthetics. But I like to build houses kinda because I build them out of thatch and I don't have to worry about, you know, farming for hours or whatever. So I built my house facing towards the mainland, and there's a big diamond shaped hole in the back where I can take my Inculo in and out with my RG. If I need to expand this later, which I probably will, I will just expand on it then. I'm not going to worry too much about it. The outside is really just a placeholder right now. I know there's going to be a garden at some point. I don't have all that planned out 100% yet. I just kind of do those things as they come along. But yeah, that's why my base is already built, and I didn't show any of that because I lost that footage, unfortunately. All right, so next is something that I would recommend doing as early as you can. You need at least 1 or 2, I would say a minimum of 2 cryopods. I go ahead and make like 20 of them. Whatever polymer I have, I just take all that. I generally like to go for 20, which is 200 crystal, 300 fiber, 100 hide, 40 ingots, 80 oil, and 160 polymer. I think polymer will be the harder resource to get, but you need cryopods, at least 2 of them, because if you tame a Rex on the other side of the map, you're not going to walk it all the way back. It just takes too long. We're not in the Dark Ages anymore. Just make cryopods, at least 2 of them. You should be able to scrounge up 8 polymer for 2. I only build more because I'm lazy and I don't want to fly. I don't want to be worried about having to make more later. I always make them in bulk. Also, you can go ahead and make a cryo fridge if you've happened to find electronics in drops. A lot of times red drops will have electronics, and I think you only need 7. So another thing to mention is, as I'm doing these things, I haven't went out and collected just tons and tons of resources or anything like that. I get a couple hundred metal here, a little bit of crystal there. I haven't gone out of my way to just absolutely load up on metal or anything like that, even though I have the Ankylo. While I was out getting the polymer, looking for polymer, you can find polymer on the icebergs. You need to at least wear some sort of fur gear. I happen to find Ascendant fur in one of the drops, so that makes it very easy to go into the ice biome for me. Or you could just make standard fur too. You can go to kill mammoths or beavers or megatheriums. That should give you enough pelt to make at least a couple pieces of fur gear. When I was out getting the polymer, I happened to come across a 120 megatherium baby. I went ahead and killed the parent and claimed that because this will come in quite useful later on in the next video probably. And you can go ahead and take your cryopod ingredients to an obelisk. That's the only place you can craft them, unless you have a a tech replicator, which you don't right now, go ahead and make as many cryopods as you have the materials for. On my way back to base, I happened to find another baby Therizino. I went ahead and claimed that too. Don't forget, you have to kill the parent. And also a side note, adult Therizinos can kill you off of your bird. But they only hurt you when they bite, when they do the bite attack. But if you're not wearing armor, they can actually kill you relatively quickly, especially if it's a high level. So just watch out for that. Another little side note here, I know that there are genes or traits or whatever in the game now, and we're building up to that. Don't worry too much about what traits you have. If you happen to tame an RG with a good trait or whatever, good. But don't worry about what you're taming right now. Just worry about the level. We will worry about genes later. I actually happened to find another high level RG, a 135 female, and I went ahead and knocked that out too at the same Carnivore Island trap. I know it seems like I find a lot of high levels because the video is edited, but believe me, I looked at a lot of RGs to find these couple. A lot of times I'll kill the low level ones so they'll respawn well, I have a chance to respawn as a higher level. So this is the end of the part 2, and now by this point you should have at least one high level Argentavis. You should have a berry collector, as in a Parasaur, or I guess you could have tamed another one at this point. I happen to have the Megatherium, so that's also a berry collector. You have a Pteranodon. You have a basic house set up. You have an Ankylo Odoidicarus for metal and stone. And you have a creature with bleed in the form of either a Carno or an imprinted Carno or a Thyla or a Dinosuchus if you're brave. And this is kind of the second chapter where now you're really set up to play the game, where you have a base of operations. You can start building your interior of your house. You can build your fabricator and a couple of forges probably, and your smithy and all of that. If you've reached this point, go ahead and fill out your house with the basic equipment. You don't have to build industrial equipment. I specifically would not build industrial equipment. Unless you have a bunch of time to kill, I guess you could build a forge, but do not build a grinder at all. Like, you just wait until you find a grinder. You'll find one eventually, but they're way too expensive to justify building a grinder. I don't even think you're high enough level for that, actually. So now you should be set up to do part 3, which is going to be showing how to level from roughly anywhere between 65 to like 75, whatever level you are, all the way up to potentially 100 if you want. I only recommend you get up to level 86 or whatever, so you can get the gene scope thing, the gene spyglass. I still haven't played with it much, so I don't know what it's called, but that's what we're going to do in the next video, and I'll be a little more specific in the next video on how exactly you should go about leveling, and I will see you in the next video.